It is precisely because of the specific nature of today's important topic, which is practically, we could even go so far as to say, the fundamental and essential secret that truly makes our entire family and all of our daily work move forward in a positive direction. That is Jesus in our midst. It's the topic we wanted to delve into at all the farms, in the Esperanza Viva groups. When you also have the wonderful opportunity to meet and gather with the volunteers and the families, it is a significant chance as we collectively perceive and understand it, while we are preparing for this upcoming Jubilee year in which Fazenda celebrates its 25th anniversary, that we have come to the profound realization that through these DVDs and these specific topics, you could use this special moment of grace we can experience here as a powerful and effective instrument. Honestly, it is much better to speak while looking directly into your eyes and truly counting on your sense of unity than just simply relying on the cold look you're giving me right now through the lens of this camera. At this moment, we also want to declare this love, this profound willingness to sacrifice one's very own life for another, also through the lens of this camera, which as a modern instrument now gives us the incredible possibility to connect with each and every one of you who are currently in the beautiful work of the Grupo Esperanza Viva, who are feeling God's personal call to follow Him within this specific mission, even those of you who are just at the very beginning of your recovery journey. So here we are together, having this unique experience, maybe as one of the very first steps on this path, to understand what God wants after these 25 years of life regarding our family, regarding the Fazenda da Esperanza. So just yesterday, when I was thinking about some ideas, talking late into the night with Frey before we went to sleep, we even went to bed later than usual talking. We went to sleep with this very experience of Jesus among us, seeking with His presence among us to understand what this extraordinary grace is that gave birth to the Fazenda. This understanding that if He, Jesus, the risen one, is not among us, the Fazenda would not even have come into existence, and we would not be here, gathered in this room, or wherever the opportunity to watch this film might be. But just yesterday, even as we were having our conversation, we truly felt that right at this very time, the profound experience we are about to have in this specific moment is already a deep experience of the living presence of Jesus among us. That, as we have learned from the charism of unity, it requires that my heart be free, empty, wanting to speak only out of love, without even worrying about perfection, or that things have to turn out well, but simply doing it out of love. And you're also empty, without any worries. And we truly ask God that because of the love between us, with Him here, He may inspire the right words that He may speak, because I am not capable. Even just now while having coffee, Beto was still saying, no, Nelson, don't worry, you have wisdom. But it's not enough. I said that, didn't I, Beto? And Anna, we had coffee together with Kako, because personal or individual wisdom is precisely the result of this love that we try to live among ourselves. And what people sometimes think is the wisdom of the one who is speaking, because sometimes they don't have clarity, we know that's not really the case. It is the result precisely of this wonderful discovery that I can share wisdom because you allow me to. On all the farms we have this experience, from those who are participating in it to the coordinators. I like to emphasize that some of them don't even know how to read or write. For example, when they're going to do a meditation topic, they pick a word, one of those that Father Cesar comments on, and they have this experience because the young people who are in recovery have empty hearts, and they make themselves available to listen without worry. And the coordinator, even without having the necessary preparation to be able to explain the gospel, that phrase, after he finishes the meditation, he leaves with such joy and comes to us to share. Man, I said things that I never in my life imagined I could say. And where does that come from? From this experience that they are gradually learning with us, that Jesus among us is wisdom. The light. That's why it's such a surprise when people come to visit the farm and ask, who is in charge of the young people here? Who are the supervisors, the monitors? When people ask us that question, we can joyfully say, it is truly they themselves, because within our community, we all share a beautiful secret, that is Jesus. Whenever two or more are gathered in his name, graciously provides divine wisdom and clarity to the one who speaks and leads that meditation. So it's the same thing here and now. But today we would like to understand the origin of how this light of understanding came about from that phrase in the gospel, where two or more are gathered in my name, I am there among them. And if possible, understanding this phrase in the light of the Charism of Unity, whose founder is Chiara Lubich, who more than 60 years ago, together with her companions, understood it. And I would like to make a point of reading an excerpt about how this light came to them. So it would be good for us to understand the origin of this charism, so that later in the farms, in the Esperanza Viva groups, with the volunteers, with our families, when they come to ask questions like, for example, a few days ago a mother asked me, but what is the Esperanza Viva group meeting? We can answer them. Today I wanted to answer this question that I answered for her by going back to our origins, because I feel that our origin has a father and a mother. We have a spiritual father and a spiritual mother. The spiritual father is Francis of Assisi, who, through the friar, when he arrived at the parish as a Franciscan, brought all this charisma of more than 800 years within his heart and passed it on to us when we were still children attending Mass with him. Some of us are here besides Ciel. But in addition to that, the friar also carried in his heart the charism of unity, which he had discovered back in Germany when he was young. So these two realities, these two charisms that he carried together in his heart, he passed on to us. And when he passed it on to us, besides the charism of Father St. Francis and Mother Chiara Lubich, at first we just lived it, but then out of curiosity, we wanted to know what was behind it. And that's when we discovered the story of how this reality was born. And we, from Fazenda da Esperança, from the Family of Hope, cannot run away from this. Whether it's on a farm, among those 2 or 3 people in charge, then the coordinators, then the boys, whether it's in an Esperanza Viva group, or with our families, if we abandon this experience, we will compromise it, and we will also, later I want to mention another passage that Chiara spoke about, end up experiencing failure. Perhaps the Almighty will permit this pain, a moment of darkness, of emptiness, everything, so that we finally wake up and ask ourselves, are we really managing, or worse, do I even want to live with the presence of Jesus, or am I valuing my own abilities too much? Because that's a great temptation that I, first of all, might fall into. The work is, for example, the work is growing. If we look at this room here among us, almost 50 of us who have consecrated ourselves to God for this work, then there will be other meetings with those who have made the commitment, the pact, the full members, which shows how big our family has become, and the temptation may arise, as sometimes it does in my heart, of a certain fear. What will the future be like? We are getting older. I confess to you that about 10 years ago, I didn't think much about this, you know. But now, already at 45, sometimes this question comes up. What will it be like later in the future? Thinking about each one of you, still young, who haven't even reached 30 yet. The question comes, how will it be? How will each one overcome their own crisis? When uncertainties and doubts begin to arise, or even when the challenges of old age eventually come. And then for me, the true answer always comes back to me from this profound experience. But it's not me, it's not Fray, it's not Hiracia or Lucy, us, those who, as Fray said yesterday in the first talk, are the founders who are carrying the work alone. There is, as we are going to examine in this passage together now, an invisible brother who has positioned himself quietly among us from the very beginning and who carefully directs our collective human experience. Now, looking at the origin, how it began with the light that Chiara Lubich and her first companions received, then I would like, together with you, to journey through the specifics of the experience we have had since the parish, since the street corner, since the light arrived from Sergipe, since Ferdi, Sergio, and later, when each one of you responded to this call. Because Jesus in the midst can only happen when someone touched by this love, by Jesus in the midst between two or more people, responds to this love and the love becomes reciprocal. The condition for Jesus in the midst to happen is that there is reciprocal love between two or more people. To be in the name of Jesus is to be gathered in reciprocal love. So in our specific case, what happened? What happened was that through the Franciscan charism, this charism of unity became incarnate in an aspect, in a pain, in a suffering of humanity, and gave a response. So those who arrived at the parish feeling restrained, suffering, marginalized, sick, those whom I met on the corner, Tonho, Beto, were touched by this love. And when they saw, perceived, and felt Jesus in the midst, who was present between two or more, what happened? Conversion. I would like us to really pay attention to this, because the first step, as we read yesterday in our internal regulations, our specific source of inspiration is love for the one we encounter. The love of Jesus who is within me and Jesus who is within the one in need. But that's just the first step. We who also have and live as members of the family of hope with the charism of unity must take one step further. In other words, the love between you and me, which also reaches this person in need, allows them to encounter that something more, which is God, and leads to conversion. But that is still just one step. Furthermore, if we remain faithful to Jesus in our midst among us, the conversion moves to another stage, which at first we struggle with a bit because we wanted it to happen right away. I remember when I wanted to immediately take Antonio and Beto to the Mariapolis Center, and it was a disaster. Because when we got there, because I wanted Tonho and Beto to already take part in the sharing of goods together with me and Frey. Because Frey and I were already doing it. Then Irasi arrived. It was clear. And in the rush of wanting them to live this experience, like for example with Maria Bros, you have to put everything in common and so on, until it reached a point where things just snapped. How can I put it? It got stressful. It got stressful. Why? Because I can't expect that from someone else. It is Jesus among us who brings about the other's conversion, and beyond that, something even greater, to seek a vocation. A vocation. So God had to require from us a renunciation that, first of all, we had to have Jesus among us, and that He among us, if we remain faithful to this love, could accomplish what is now a reality. That even young people who experience darkness, the hell of drugs, total destruction, felt the call, I want to consecrate myself to God. Something extraordinary. We were not capable of doing that. Only the presence of Jesus among us. That is why, if we are gathered here today, it is precisely the result of that choice, first and foremost, to want to live this charism, the charisms of these parents. Saint Francis, who in the leper encountered Jesus and was not afraid. And here is our particular calling, but combined together, united with this charism of unity. What did that bring about? It brought about this extraordinary miracle that everyone, when they come close, even the Holy Father, it was the greatest joy that Fray Hans wanted to give to the Holy Father, that he, as the Vicar of Christ here on earth, would have the chance to encounter Jesus in the midst. This wish might even seem pretentious, but that was the wish. It was in Fray's heart. So that when the Holy Father arrived here, in the simplicity of our way of being, he could have this encounter. And that's why it's no coincidence that he, a man like the Holy Father, after leaving the farm, doesn't stop. Even in his last statement on December 21st, he spoke about the farm. What happened? The charisma of these two fathers made it possible for him to have this encounter. And now, the unfolding of this, we can't even begin to measure it, because it's not just any man, it's the Vicar of Christ. So deep down, it was Christ himself meeting Christ among us. What will come of this, which is already happening, is truly something extraordinary. But going back to the very origin, to the deep desire we had for the very first individuals, or the initial group of people, to understand in the exact same way we did, that they could truly live here with us. We all really need to understand that. First, it is the deeply personal and intentional choice I make to live for Christ in the one who suffers, and also for the presence of Christ among all of us. This then leads to conversion and can even give rise to a vocation. But for us to understand it this way, without making mistakes, I would like to read a short passage from Chiara telling the story of the discovery of Jesus among us. It was a speech she gave in 1997 during this particular meeting that she held in a beautiful city in Italy. While she was speaking about the presence of Jesus among us, she truly helps us to deeply understand the very origin of this concept. Afterwards, I will return again to our story. The air raid shelter that took us in was not safe. Here everyone can already understand what she is talking about. So these were tumultuous and terrifying times of war, and the profound discovery that Chiara made with her first companions happened in a circumstance where the city of Trent, the place where they lived, was being systematically destroyed and bombed into ruins during the air raids. So many times when the alarm sounded, everyone had to run to the air raid shelters. And here, as most of us know, the only thing they remembered to bring was the gospel. And God, that is Jesus, pedagogically, every time they found themselves in that situation, would have them open the gospel. And the words would light up one by one each time they met. And as a direct consequence of those challenging circumstances, it entered deep into their hearts as an incredibly powerful and transformative force. So, after they made these repeated and difficult journeys, they were forced to take to the air raid shelter. They discovered the depth of God's love, the clarity of God's will, and then finally came the moment to make this profound and truly luminous spiritual discovery about Jesus being right there in their midst. So the shelter that took us in was not safe. We were always facing death. Then another question came over us. Does there exist a specific will of God that truly brings him great pleasure in a particularly unique and special way? If we had to die, we wanted to have put precisely that into practice, even if it was only in our final moments. The Holy Gospel responded and spoke of a commandment that Jesus Christ himself referred to as his own and knew. This is my commandment. Love one another as I have loved you. No one has greater love than the one who lays down his life for his friends. Then Chiara continues, we looked into each other's eyes and declared ourselves, I am ready to give my life for you, I for you, I for you, all of us for each other. From that promise came the answer to the 1,000 daily demands of fraternal love. We are not always asked to die for one another. However, we can share everything. Our worries, our joys, our pains, our meager possessions, our small spiritual riches. We felt that life had grown in quality. Without making a sound, someone quietly joined our group. He is an invisible brother, one who brings a profound sense of security, a deep joy never before felt, a new and lasting peace. 14, a complete fullness of life, and an unmistakable, radiant light. It was Jesus fulfilling his words among us. Where two or three are gathered in my name, here Chiara adds in parentheses, in my love, there I am in their midst. He had once spoken these words, may they all truly be as one, and may they be in us, so that the whole world may believe. If Christ is present in the unity of brothers and sisters, the world believes. That is what happened around us. Radical changes in people multiplied, as did the most varied conversions. Vocations that were in danger were saved. New ones were born as well, and it's beautiful to read this after 25 years of life among us, experiencing that, in fact, this really happened. Vocations were saved, so many over all these years since the time of the parish. And beyond that, new vocations were born. I'm looking at you all right now. For example, Christian, when he arrived, came to have an experience as a young man and discovered his priestly vocation here. At that time, we thought Christian's life could stay with us, right? But it's what Jesus wants. Jesus in our midst wants it, and not as we want it. He needed to go back to Germany, become a priest, serve as a priest there for many years, and only then come here. It's the same thing. For example, if we think about when Anderson and Luis arrived here, they already wanted to become priests right away. It was the opposite, you see. They already wanted to go straight to the parish, but they ended up staying here. In that struggle that happened, and it was the same with all the others who came after. It's Jesus in our midst who inspires. In what way? Is it this year? No. Is it next year? No. Is it the following year? So it is He who inspires the new vocations that were written in Him. So other new vocations were born. If Christ is present in the unity of the brothers, the world believes. After a few months, about 500 people of all ages, men and women from all social backgrounds, wanted to share our ideal. Everything among us was shared in common, just like in the first Christian communities. The words of the gospel were unique, fascinating, incisive, and could be translated into life. They were a light for every person who came into this world, and therefore universal. That is what happens to this day. The children arrive, and you see it in the program. We see it in the program. They, through experience, which they still don't fully understand, of being in the midst of a group that is aware that we need to have Jesus among us. After 1 or 2 weeks of this journey, as I now remember Eupidio, it's good for us to recall his experience now when he found himself in that situation after 7 years in prison, up there with the buffaloes. That word came, you are not orphans. I will not leave you orphans. 2 weeks into the journey, how could a man coming from the situation he came from arrive and have that understanding to grasp those words? As it says here, they became light, they could be understood because of the presence of Jesus among us. By living them, everything changed. The relationship with God, with those around us, with our enemies. Those words put all values in their proper place and relegated everything else, even father, mother, siblings, and even one's own work, to put God first in the heart of man. What happened yesterday? It was interesting. Without us having talked about it between myself and the friar, together with the families, we understood this situation that we have to take on. God also called the families, and He also asked them to take a step, just as He once asked us, not to have a family, to leave father and mother, not to marry in a physical sense. But what about those who are married? They are already married, have children, and in the future grandchildren. What should they do? So in a moment of gathering, like this one, right now, who am I going to leave my children with? But the children will understand. And the experience we've had all these years is that children grow up in a healthy, mature environment because they see their parents coming home after the gathering more serene, more at peace. Why is that? Because their hearts are with God. And they realize that God is present between the two, being the educator, the one who also guides the children. And some here will identify with this, just as others who will watch this program will confirm it. Our children started to be raised differently, even the older ones. Why is that? Because they too, through you, had an encounter with Jesus in their midst. We call it the farm because that's what we can visibly see, right? But the invisible reality is the presence of Jesus among us, which they experience through contact with you, who take this step of renunciation in moments like this one here now, of gathering when we need to be together, or in so many other moments when you give up your privacy to go live with the boys on the farm. When we remember Didi's experience, who went to live with Cecilia on the farm, and following your example, other couples too, with that question, that doubt, but will it really work? Me with my wife among the boys. And then we started to realize and are realizing more and more that it wouldn't work if it weren't for the calm, serene, secure, and radical experience that me, Didi, you, Cecilia, we have to have the presence of Jesus among us. Then when we go to the farm, we go as three. And because of that, there is no danger, no problem, no difficulty. The boys, when they meet with you, and this is a reality that we need to deepen more and more, because currently there are 5 couples who live directly on the farm, even as those responsible. We are noticing this grace, this extraordinary grace, that the couple, through their experience of Jesus among them, as Frey always taught us, sacramentalized the strength they have as a light to help the young people. It is something extraordinary. So now that this passage from Chiara comes to an end, those words put everything in its proper place. Thank you. All these values, for example, like those of the family, for this reason, those words contained extraordinary promises. The 100-fold in this life and eternal life. That was the first part I wanted to understand together with you regarding the origin. And then reflecting when I was thinking about our story and asking myself, what were the moments when in our experience we moved from loving Jesus in the other, from loving Christ in the other, to giving Christ in our midst to the other, which later led to conversion and even to vocation. So, as we all know from the story, in the beginning, Frey Hans arrived at the parish. He began to have this experience of welcoming people at the parish, and at the same time, Irasi was there at the social work. Then I was there on the corner up to that point. Everything was France's love. And it was something admirable. It touched us. It also filled our hearts. And for each one of us, there came a moment when we moved from this love of Christ in the other. And in the one who was loved, it stirred up love in return. And by meeting the other with Jesus in the midst, it led to conversion. So let's give a concrete example. We have now inaugurated the corner of hope. And when we with simplicity asked Antonio to speak Beto, then suddenly Antonio came and said, there was a moment that was a special moment among us here at the corner. It was the moment when Nelson with his sister arrived with a cake because Tay, one of the young people in the group, was having a birthday. We need to remember the story in order to understand what this charism is like, how it arose. Just like what we read here now, even though it may seem like something we've heard many times, the story about the cake is no different, but we need to go deeper precisely so that, who knows, even now we can start over again with even greater strength. So when we got there with the cake, I asked Anina, my sister, who wanted in some way to have this experience. I remember that when I got home, she said, Nelson, you come back so happy from these meetings that I wanted in some way to take part. I made this cake, take it to the young man. I made it for Jesus. I remember her words as if it were today. I made it for Jesus. Then I said to her, no, you came along. We're going together. And she agreed. But when we got there, it was her first time there. And then you called. Tea arrived there. We ate the cake with our hands. And in that moment, something magical happened. We say magical to mean what? That invisible presence became something striking, powerful. It was at that moment, as Antonio said, that the question arose, why? For what purpose? And the desire, and so in everyone's heart. There was the first one who took the first step, but from the experience of Jesus in our midst, which happened between me and Frey, between me and Aninia, this Jesus in our midst reached the corner and here provoked the conversion. But it didn't stop there. Then Antonio, together with us, began to live reciprocal love in the parish, together with Frey and so on. And this reciprocal love, even though we no longer hung out at the corner, made it so that suddenly Ademir sought out Antonio, then Beto, Angelo. I don't really remember the order anymore. Angelo and Beto. Asking to have this experience. This is something so extraordinary because when I meet with all the young people at all the farms, I like to talk about this. Did you understand? The recovery did not happen through hospitalization. In fact, we should say this. The recovery happened during hospitalization with Jesus in the midst of it all. In other words, they checked themselves into rehab, Beto, Angelo, Antonio, Ademir. Since we didn't have room and Antonio's request was to take me along. Wherever you want to go, I need someone to accompany me 24 hours a day. We had no idea where to take him, so where did we take him? To live in the presence of Jesus among us. So that's where the rehabilitation began. Antonio, Beto, Angelo, Ademir, and later others who came, all encountered Jesus in the midst of what we had. At the parish, together with the friar, they started their recovery. The conversion happened, which later on in the future also prepared the way for vocations and for the vocations that were born and for the work that God was already preparing and planning. Through the faithfulness we maintained, always being nourished, and here comes another aspect. Once the experience had begun, as time went by, we learned from the very charism of unity and also from the faithfulness of St. Francis that it was important for us to continue nourishing ourselves with these charisms. We couldn't say that the charism was within us, the friar, myself, then Ariasi, then Lucia, because we wanted to nourish ourselves with this charism, with Jesus among us. What did we do? From the time we decided to live together in the first house at 77 Tapuya Street, I had a meeting in the center of Mariapolis. Goodbye, Tonho. Goodbye, Beto. What did we do? I was going to the meeting. Why? To nourish ourselves with the presence of Jesus in our midst. And then you guys had to fend for yourselves here. And conducting the experiment from the beginning was like this, and it continues to be repeated to this day. When we manage to be faithful in choosing, above all, the presence of Jesus among us, which needs to be nourished. When we are not able to be faithful, the farms start to become so-so. The reality is no longer there. Conversions don't happen, vocations don't arise, the farms start to empty out, it loses its meaning, people leave, even the vocation itself is lost. And that's why, for example, at a meeting like this one right now, several of you in conversation wrote emails, both families and consecrated people asking, but what about the situation here at the farm? Who stays at the farm? In Germany, this question came up, and also in the Philippines, couples asked about their children. And we, with courage, because of the initial experience, we always say, Jesus in the midst among them must lead. They need to have this experience, and we also need to have ours. Because we are not capable of leading the work on our own. And that's why we go to the meetings, we go to participate, That's why in the statute, in the regulations, we made it clear. The members of the family of hope are nourished by these two charisms. And with regard to the charism of unity, they are nourished by participating in the meetings. Why? So that they can drink from this source of Jesus in the midst. And to give the opportunity for those who stay to have this experience of the presence of Jesus in the midst. When the Women's Center was founded, let's recall a very important event that we all know here, but it's important out of love for others that they can identify with it. Irasi was gaining experience in the social work as a good social worker. She worked at the bank and so on, and she had this desire. But she already sensed, because of the experience she already had with the charism of unity, that a companion was missing. That was exactly when Lucy first arrived there all the way from Sergipe. She had originally come just to spend her 3 months of vacation, and then suddenly, at a certain unexpected moment, Lucy was cleaning the feet of a poor person. The love of Christ in the needy. And she, like this, taking care of the poor in the work. Love of Christ in the needy. But the two of them connected. And the love of Christ in the needy became the love of Jesus among us in the needy, which then allowed the experience of the Women's Center to be born and for Vera to be welcomed. The first one, and that's how it was born. And just so you have an idea, there were attempts to establish a Women's Center which didn't work out. We had already won the house. Someone started, but it didn't work out. They were alone. It happened at the time when there was mutual love between the two, and then more, because Yudamar arrived soon after. Yudamar or Donna Anina? Mrs. Anina. And then right after that, Idamar and everything. And there, it was developing. And here I am reminded of that word that we meditated on a few days ago regarding Pope Benedict XVI. He who does not give to God gives nothing. He who does not give to God gives nothing. And that's what sets us apart. That's what sets us apart. This deeply impacted our lives and made us think quite a lot, leading us to reevaluate every single aspect of our daily reality here on the farm. What exactly am I giving to the boys? What are you providing for the girls? And for us to truly understand what we are actually giving them, we need to carefully examine the fruits of our labor. We must see if genuine conversions are truly happening. Because first and foremost, we are not just simply wanting him or her to stop using drugs. Stopping drug use, as we've realized from the beginning, is a consequence. What happens, as the Pope noticed from the very first time he was here, from the moment he spoke, the first time he spoke, which was in his speech here, is that beyond physical healing, conversions also happen. And then it's not just that fruit. We should also ask ourselves if we are attracting vocations and new vocations. This new vocation for the church. Because since we are preparing to become a work approved by the church, in Rome, the church takes on this reality. It becomes, as it already is, through the approval we received. In the Diocese of Aparecida, with Cardinal Loqueda, a reality of the church. So it takes this on. So it is a vocation. We have to detach ourselves from the idea that it is something of our own. It is a vocation that God created. And then I need to ask myself if, from my life, and above all, from our life between you and me, with Jesus in the midst. In the midst, vocations are also born, and not just conversions. At this point, I would very much like then to share and read through another short passage that talks about Jesus in the midst. For those who walk the path of unity, the presence of Jesus among brothers and sisters is essential. It is necessary for this presence to always remain alive. If not, It will be a personal failure. And it is precisely this that characterizes the charism of unity. It is from this that we draw in order to be able to live. In the same way that two poles of an electric light, even though there is electrical tension, do not produce light until they are joined together, but when they are, they do produce it. As soon as they are connected, two people cannot experience the light. This is typical of this charism unless they are united in Christ through charity. So it's not simply about sharing the same space in a house. In our communities, it sometimes happens that we have the terrible experience of living together in a house as brothers, even after having consecrated ourselves. And we experience the hell of not feeling God's presence. It's painful. Sometimes it even happens between a couple. And for us, it is the condition for the farm to exist, the condition for the family to move forward, the condition for everything we've talked about here to happen. We have to, in any way possible, ask God. And in another topic, which we will address later, to embrace the abandoned Jesus and restore things as quickly as possible through charity. As Irasi always reminds us in our meetings, reciprocal love, Jesus in our midst is the child of reciprocal love. We have to restore ourselves very quickly, and it has always been this way since the beginning. We always talked, and when we finished talking, we would talk even more. That's why we have this experience of living together. When we started in the first little house on Tapuya Street, and Ferdi, Frejon's cousin, arrived, and then Sergio Cano arrived, having participated in Mariapolis, he wanted to meet those who lived this spirituality. At first, he didn't come to see the farm or that experience that was just beginning. He came to meet the young people who were living this experience of Jesus in our midst. So when they arrived, we felt that we should make a pact among ourselves. And I remember one of the elements of this pact was because we started living together for a year, 2 years, it was that we could not allow the poison of judgment to take root in our hearts. And we made a pact among ourselves. No matter what it takes, no matter what it costs, we will always talk things out. And I'll tell you how this pact helped us. Why? It was rare for a week to go by without it happening. One thing I didn't understand about Ferd, about Sergio, that I didn't understand about Frey. And because of this pact, we have saved them throughout all these years. Amen. The presence of Jesus among us. Until one day, which we would like to dream together with you, we felt the need to make this pact at the tomb of our father, St. Francis, after a moment of darkness. It was a feeling of immense failure that we experienced among ourselves, me, Fry, and among us as well, in which God allowed us to almost feel that everything could end. We started over through reciprocal love. I remember when Father Germano was here, he helped all of us. It was practically something like that, Diamantina, clear and straightforward. He said, but you are forgetting something. Remember, you have to remember to see Jesus in the friar. It's not just with the boys. And the friar was already among us because he had patience with us and among ourselves. Then, after we got through that crisis, we had the grace, I don't remember now under what circumstances, to be there in Assisi. And we made this pact at the tomb of St. Francis that he would not allow the unity among us to be broken. I don't know how many years it's been, Friar. Do you have a better memory? I think it's been more than 12 years already. I'm not sure. And then we wanted to renew that with Louise, Anderson, Cesar, and later with Lucia and Irasi. And our dream one day is, but all of that, it's a reality that we repeat every day. There are moments when we establish this pact, just like what happens in marriage. But there are moments when I make a choice about what I want, like first and foremost, the divine presence of Jesus here among all of us, or perhaps something else. So to wrap up, I wanted to read here the premise that exists in the statute of the work of Mary. We are working on our own statute. Actually, we've already completed our statute. It has already been approved here in Brazil in the diocese. Now it's waiting to receive approval in Rome. And now we are drafting our internal regulations. And these days, at the Mariápolis Center, while we were attending the meeting there, they read to us the premise, that is what comes before everything else, from the statute of the work of Mary of the Focolare movement. I think I will bring this significant moment to a close by reading these words aloud here among all of us today, now asking you to make an even more profound and sincere effort to dedicate your absolute and undivided attention so that we can truly keep this as the reality that I need, that you need, for us to fully convert my heart and your heart, so that we can return to our origins. Therefore, the text clearly states that a sense of mutual and unwavering continuous charity, which is what truly makes a deep unity possible, and invites and attracts the divine presence of Jesus within the community, serves as, for the people who are part of the work of Mary, the fundamental cornerstone of their lives in each and every single aspect, and the rule of all rules. It is the essential underlying premise of all other rules. Shall we repeat? The practice of mutual and unwavering continuous charity, which makes the achievement of true unity possible and invites the very presence of Jesus into the community, is, for those who are part of the work of Mary, the essential and fundamental cornerstone of their entire lives in every single aspect. It is the rule of all rules, the premise of all other rules. This here is the premise that is in the statute of the work of Mary. We, inspired by these two fathers, have taken this premise for ourselves in the sense that we want to live it out in the calling that God has made specifically for the family of hope. We are not the work of Mary, we are the family of hope, but we must not abandon our origin, nor our mother who was Lubick, nor our father St. Francis. All right?